Welcome back to S2E8 of Geek Time, and that beautiful concerto means that it's time to talk about Fringe. We're waiting for Joshua Jackson to give us a buzz, and that gives us a little time to talk about Fringe and what's going on. Now, a lot of times there'll be campaigns for shows on television, save this show, and it used to never, ever work. But over the past couple of years, some shows have been saved by either fan demand or with Family Guy, when those DVDs came out, that brought the show back onto network television. It is a possibility, but the only way it works is if you get critical mass, not necessarily a huge critical mass, but a vocal, active critical mass.
Right, because they know those people are going to be watching the show. They're dedicated to the show, and we'll talk about this more later, but part of the problem with Fringe is, and I'm guilty of it, because I just sat down and watched 3 episodes, you have to watch it when it's on. DVR does not count as much for some reason. I don't quite understand that, but because they can see that people are watching it. But you have to watch Fringe at 9 o'clock on Fridays. That's the biggest thing. You have to. That's going to count for more than anything.
The DVR numbers do count, but in a back end kind of way, and the advertisers sort of understand how that works. But Ralph's right. You need to watch the show, and you need to watch it live, especially because Fox exiled the show to Fridays at 9. And I don't care what the show is, it's very, very difficult to keep that show at a big audience when you're on a Friday night. It's just tough. But I think Fringe has enough.
But they realize that.
Yeah.
And if people will just tune in at that time, it doesn't matter what you're doing, just watch Fringe.
And Fox has said they're behind the show, and you have the actors saying we want to keep the show on. And look, this is Geek Time. We're going to help about as best we can.
Hotline transmitting via cellular technology.
And now, Geek Time is thrilled to welcome a man who literally holds the fate of the world in his hands. Peter Bishop himself, Joshua Jackson.
There's that's the Fringe music we want. Joshua Jackson, Peter Bishop, yay!
How's it going, guys?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm pretty damn good.
It is so great to have you on. Me and John have been watching this show from the beginning and just loving it. Just gets better and better all the time.
Excellent. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good place story-wise. I was listening to you guys talk about it earlier, and, you know, story-wise, I think we're kicking ass, but
yeah,
that Friday night slot is tough. You're right.
Yeah, when you got moved... Oh, Joshua, I need to turn your radio down on your end because I'm getting a little bit of echo.
A little bit.
But when they moved you...
Wait. Is it still echoing through?
Now we're good.
Are you? Okay. Maybe that's the alternate universe bleeding through. Is there a ripple? Do we need to get Amber out?
It's the Bad Robot Fox ghost making sure that I don't say anything I'm not supposed to.
I think now we're getting weird beeps. Maybe we should call you right back.
What the hell is that?
What is
this interview is going really well for you guys.
Sir, I think like there's a hole in the universe here.
All right, later, Joshua. Just watch Fringe, people. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Been a pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for calling.
I guess that must be on my end. Huh?
All right, let's try and call you back. Let's put him on hold real quick, guys.
All right, 1 second.
Thanks.
All right, so Joshua's now on hold. Jason's going to pick up the phone. Of all the interviews for this to happen to, by the way, how great is it during from Fringe? Because this happens on the show. Stuff like this definitely happens.
What is this, Scott the engineer?
But we'll get Joshua back on here because Ralph and I are like at the edge of our seats here trying to talk to him. What I'm going to ask when he comes back is, Fringe was successful in its slot. It wasn't killing, but it wasn't doing poorly.
Right.
And then they shift American Idol over to Wednesday and Thursday, and as a result, Fringe gets bumped to Friday. And this is one of those shows where you need to invest yourself in the storylines and you get to know these characters, and it really builds. And to sort of start and stop and shift around, it's got to be very difficult while they're making good TV.
And I think you can jump in on this show, but you really, it's not going to have the same payoff as it does if you watch it from the beginning. And it's not that hard to watch from the beginning. Start from the beginning because like we've said, it's been great from the beginning. It's just gotten better and better. One of the best season finales ever was, what season was that?
First season. Joshua, do we have you back?
Yeah, I'm back. It was my call waiting.
We were just talking about that season 1 finale when you pull back and you see the World Trade Center.
I mean, World Trade Center, how good was that?
You know what's so great about it? It's like I know the architecture of that building, and they start to pull back, and I notice the windows. I go, those look like the windows from the trade, and they pull back, and it's the World Trade Center. I'm like, holy shit, that's brilliant.
that was the first real kick-ass moment of the show. We had a couple good ones in the first season.
Yeah.
But that was the moment that if you were watching, you were just like, oh, man, I'm in for something else here.
Right, and that's what the show has, so many of those moments where, I like shows like this and Lost where if you're invested in it, it pays off. Me
too. I mean, if I wasn't on Fringe, I would definitely be a Fringe fan. Yeah. And I love those shows where if you put the time in, you get so much more out of it than just sort of sitting on your couch, scratching your ass, kind of turning your brain off.
Yeah, you kind of have to be smart to watch this show too. I mean,
I don't know if it's so much. I mean, yeah, what you have to do is pay attention.
Yeah.
I guess you don't have to pay attention, but if you do, so much more cool stuff pops out.
People are conditioned just to kind of half watch things and do things. It's like when Inception came out and I went to the theater to see it, I could just see the moment where people weren't paying attention,
right.
Started chatting, and I came on the show. I go, if you're stupid, do not go see Inception because you're just going to be lost.
And let's face it. I mean, you're talking about alternate universes. You've got Walter, who's an amazing character. We're talking very technical stuff,
and let's not forget Walternate. And I digress. Your scenes with John, Walter, you guys together is so brilliant. You guys have so many great scenes.
Well, he, in my opinion, is sort of the engine that drives the show because he's just awesome.
He's the heart and soul of the show, really.
Exactly. He's the heart. Yeah, the engine or the heart, or however you want to describe him. And also, he gets the most difficult job. Not only does he have to make this crazy mad scientist character sympathetic, he also has to explain these concepts that are way far out there to the audience. So I always tip my hat to him. But the most fun that I have working with him is when we get to do that father-son stuff, and you see the human on the inside of Walter. He's got all the tics, he's got the fast food obsession, and he's crazy. But at the end of the day, he's just a screwed up guy trying to be a good dad.
Yeah,
and the universe.
Yeah, and you guys have that great relationship. And what's great about it too is like when you didn't have that relationship, when you found out you weren't you, that played out almost in a real way. Like things don't happen quick on the show. They play out over like 2 or 3 episodes. Even if it's like somebody being scarred up, they don't heal the next episode.
Yeah.
It takes a little while, but your relationship, you had to build that back with him. And you saw that. It seemed so real to me. I want to call you Peter Bishop. Thank you, Peter.
I think if you watch right from the very beginning, which you guys obviously have, in the first season, we couldn't figure out what the show was going to be, right? Was it going to be every week was a new investigation, or was it going to have these long stories?
Yeah.
And by about halfway through the first season, one of the big brains realized this show wants to be like Lost. It wants to have a big story, and we have this incredible actor in John Noble, so let's just keep on shoveling things at him and see what he can do.
That's interesting.
So, by the time we got into season 2, there are repercussions for, the story doesn't... I hate shows when, like somebody has a baby at the end of this episode and it's, big tears and everybody's all broken up, and by the beginning of the next episode, nobody even mentions it again.
Right. Yeah.
That drives me crazy because it's not like real life. And, I love working on a show where, if you get dinged up, you're dinged up for the next couple episodes. Or if you do something really bad to somebody, they remember.
See, Joshua, with your character, at the beginning of the show, you had this sort of CIA operative background and what you would, but I think a lot of characters made a lot of changes, but it was done very well. And you can kind of see the show beginning to hit its stride. And like Olivia's sister and the kid, they kind of went away, and the monster of the week, you guys pulled off of that a little bit and really got into the relationship between you, Olivia, and Walter, which is, what's at the core of it all.
This screwed up family at the center of this show. Right? We're making Father Knows Best with science fiction. And
with two fathers.
With 2 fathers, yeah, exactly. 2 fathers and 2 girls, which didn't go very well for me this year.
Which Olivia do you like better?
Yeah.
I got to go over there, Olivia. It seems like it'd be more fun. You'd probably end up dead.
Right.
You'd enjoy your way down.
But now we also, as of last night, which I love, now what are we calling her? Is this Bellivia or Spolivia, like Spock and Olivia? Like now you've got to... Which one do you like better, Spolivia or Bellivia?
Well, we've been calling her Bellivia.
All right,
it's
good.
Like too close to Bolivia. It starts to get really creepy. Unless you're into some very kinky stuff, because she's him and her and her and...
Listen, we got to give her props too, because when that happened the end of last week, and she started doing a Leonard Nimoy impression. I'm like, uh-oh, let's see how this plays out. And I thought it was great, especially when she got the little subtle eyebrow lift.
The eyebrow thing, yeah. I mean, I think
that must have been hard for her.
If you think you were going, imagine what she was thinking. Like, you want me to do what?
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
I was thinking that because
What?
you guys get a lot of acting challenges like that. You're in two worlds. I mean, some characters more so than others, but Olivia, man, she's playing a little kid. She's got Spock in her. She's really, playing, she's in love with you in different ways on both. But your character, you've got to be, so subtle in the way you treat different stuff. But when you had that, when you and Walter both realized what happened, and now you know that both of you know, I thought you did a great job playing that scene off well, because it can come off as kind of schmaltzy and, oh man, don't go down there. Yeah. But it really brought more heart to the show.
That's I mean, if we're trying to figure out anything this year, it's how to go for the big emotional stuff without getting to the schmaltzy. Like that's exactly the line that you don't want to cross. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's a total dangerous line, and you're doing it a lot, and I think you guys are doing a great job with it.
Especially,
what's that?
No, I was going to say, especially with this current storyline with you and Olivia and Bolivia.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that could get schmaltzy so easily, but so far you guys are walking the line.
We're doing our best not to get into suck.
Yes.
You want like emotional impact without the suck.
Yes,
and then you're all good.
Avoid suck at all costs. But speaking of something that sucks, so your first year, you're on Thursdays. I mean, the show has good buzz, and then we find out, and we made a big deal about it on the show when it happened, you get thrown into the Friday night death slot. I mean, how did you react when you found out that's where you were going?
Well, actually, people don't remember, but the first year, we were actually on Tuesdays.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we've been bounced around a lot, and when we went from season 1 to season 2, we went on to Thursdays, which was already a kind of an uphill battle as a sci-fi show. Mm-hmm. That's where all the big boys are playing, and we held our own. And for whatever reason, this year the numbers have gone down, and I don't really know why, because it's all the same cast members, and I actually think story-wise we're doing really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting bumped onto Friday is. It's not great. I mean, nobody's happy to be in that time slot. But Fox, it might be the place. What's that?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, in the best case scenario, it might be the place that Fringe, as a sci-fi show with a really devoted core audience, finds its home, finally. Instead of getting bounced around, maybe Fridays is the place where enough people will just tune in on the night, and then we'll be fine.
Because the Friday numbers are up for Fox.
Yeah. The Friday numbers are up for Fox. Friday has sort of been a wasteland of television since actually the X-Files used to be there.
That's right.
Which is a long time ago now. And if we can just get the people who watch the show on the DVR numbers that we get every week to watch it on Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the fate of Fringe is in the hands of the people who love the show.
Well,
because if you watch it on Friday, if you were DVRing it on Tuesday, knock that shit off. Watch it on Friday.
Joshua Jackson says, knock that shit off. And, we talked about it earlier, and we'll continue to stress it on the show, and this show replays and stuff, so people get the idea. But you do have to watch it when it's on. And I'll tell you, Joshua, I'm guilty of it, because I do love to sit down and watch them back to back. But I'll give up that love for the show, because I don't want the show to give away. I go away.
I'm the prime offender, because I like shows like you guys do that are serialized, so I don't, it kills me to wait a week for the next story.
Right. Yeah, but you know what?
If you want to do that in season 4, you go right ahead. Right now?
All right, so Joshua, we've been talking about the ways that, shows get saved. It has happened in the past. What can we tell our audience? What should we do? What would you suggest people do for the rest of this season in order to save the show?
Yeah, because Josh, not just that, like, we'll have people call Fox if we want, but we were even thinking maybe you do one of those things where you send stuff in, like pieces of Fringe. I don't know, like that campaign. The Peanuts. What show was it where they send Peanuts into?
Peanuts was Jericho.
Did that work?
Yes.
Yeah. And I had a friend who was on Jericho, and they got picked up, and they said, like, the best way to piss off your boss, send like 4,000 tons of peanuts to their office addressed to them personally.
Well, do you think would a website with besides we know the most important thing you're saying is watch on Fridays, but I'm wondering if we could send stuff in too, like cows.
Well, I think if you're going to send stuff in, you know what you got to send in: red vines.
Oh yeah,
Walter's obsessed with the red vines.
Oh,
licorice.
That's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
I think that's the way to go.
I like that.
So
all right, we got our marching orders.
Licorice. If you really want to piss off the people that I work for, I'm not saying you should, but if you wanted to.
Well, would that piss them off? And then we don't want to piss them off, and then they don't renew Fringe.
I think
we want to do it. We want to do it in a nice way that just shows them, like, hey, people out there love the show.
Yeah. Well, I think jokes aside, everything at this point is going to help. So yeah, if you guys get together a campaign to send licorice into the Fox offices, it just if they show up every day and there's a box of licorice there, and it just reminds them of the show. But the truth of the matter is I don't think Fox wants to cancel Fringe.
Right.
I think they've always said, and they frankly have been, even though they moved this around, they've always been behind the show, and they've stuck with us. All we really need, and if you happen to know somebody who is a Nielsen family, threaten them, give me their address, I'll send them a nice gift. It doesn't matter. Just watch the show on Fridays, and we'll be on for as long as we need to be.
Yeah, a lot of times, I'm sorry, Ralph, a lot of times you read about a network saying, we're behind the show, and then the lineup gets announced and it's gone.
Right.
But there seems to be quite a bit of actual support from the network for your show.
Yeah, they came, when they moved, they said, we're not ditching you guys. And even JJ came out at that point and said he's behind this, he wants to see the show succeed. The guys you got on it, one of the guys used to be on Lost too, right? J.H. Wyman or...
Actually, it's the other guy, Pinkner.
Jeff
Pinkner is one of the two. We call them the two-headed monster. But I think Kevin Riley, who was who fought for this show right from the very beginning just to get it made and then get it on the air, and they did a big promo from season 1 into season 2, and that's sort of how you tell when networks. Anybody can say anything, but when they're willing to spend the money to promote the move, that's when you know they're behind the show. And Fox has been with us at every step. All we need to do is just show them that we have the numbers to justify their faith.
Yeah,
they're businessmen, and it's a cold, dark business, this one. So at the end of the day, they're going to make a business decision. But if you asked them in his heart of hearts, I think they would want to keep the show on the air.
Now you were on another show, obviously, Dawson's Creek, which was like a huge hit, and this show is a bit more of a struggle in the sense of, you have to tell people to watch and things like that. I mean, what is the difference with that? Does it, besides the numbers, I mean, it almost seems like you're having a better experience on Fringe.
Well, Fringe is more my kind of show.
Yeah.
It's one, to go and cry your way through 6 years of your life professing your undying love for somebody. For some people, that's okay, but it's a little tired after a while. And, I grew up, for me, The X-Files was sort of the greatest show of my childhood, right? And that was sit down and watch it every week. So to be on a show like that now, this is my kind of show. And frankly, it's more my kind of storytelling. Because Dawson's Creek was a prime offender. I mean, you'd have, these two people would be hopelessly in love week 1, and then next week they're not talking to each other and nobody ever explains it.
Yeah, what happened?
So, and after 6 years, there's only so many times 6 characters can fall in love with each other. It's like a very incestuous thing. But on Fringe, the story, there are no limits to what our story can be if we just have the amount of time to tell it. And, when we started the show, of course, everybody wants it to be a massive, gigantic hit, and it has been more of a ratings. I think last year we were in a good place, but this year's definitely been a ratings struggle for whatever reason. But now more than anything, I don't think the show can finish because we need to get to the end. Because and I know that when you commit yourself to these shows, the worst thing that can happen is they leave you with a cliffhanger, the show gets pulled off the air, and you're like, what? I just gave 3 years of my life to this story, and you're not going to finish it? That drives me nuts.
Where are you, well, in that scenario, like you guys, obviously you don't know yet if you're back next season, so are you sort of preparing for something for the last episode? If that happens, is there some sort of, if you don't come back, or like, I can't...
Supposedly, to hear the guys tell it, and I got to have faith in them. I haven't read the finale yet because it hasn't come out, but to hear the guys tell it, there is a contingency plan. If we're not coming back, there is an end to the story that they know and have known, and that will work at the end of this year if that's the case. But it will be, I think, rushed if it has to go that way,
right?
Because we're not at that phase, right? We're not in the apocalypse phase of the show. So you want to finish off the story. So even if we only got picked up for half a season next year and they said, okay, we'll give it half a season and that's it, at least we would get to satisfy, guys like you who have stuck with the show from the very beginning, who deserve the end of the story, whatever it's going to be, just the end of the story.
Well, let's see. Well, let's say we get there. You got to pick a universe. It comes out. Not even just picking Olivia. You got to pick a universe. Which universe do you want to live in?
I think I got to go with this universe.
Really?
I'd miss the coffee.
All right. Well, but how about the airships? That was such a cool little touch.
We know what universe Ralph wants to be in. That's for sure.
Plus they got cooler tech. I mean, the Fringe division has those cool, they have that cool logo, and they're running around with the iPad. What's that?
And gets respect.
We're
still stuck. In this universe, we're still stuck in Walter's basement. Over there, they're like, you walk down the street, they're like heroes.
That's right. You're out. Now, on the show, there's a ton of, this is Geek Time. There's a ton of geeky stuff. There's a lot of science going on. Any show that has Nimoy on it, we're on board to start with.
Please come back.
But my question to you, Joshua, based on what you're saying here in the storytelling, and you sounds like you got a little bit of geek in you. Would you classify yourself as a geek?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I've earned my stripes in my 32 years.
Do you have an iPad, an iPhone? What operating system do you use?
The reason I was 5 minutes late in calling you right now is because I was dicking around playing Fruit Ninja, killing some time. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
And we're totally impressed by that.
Hey, we've been talking about this, too. There's a bunch of geeky movies coming out next year. You got Thor, Captain America, Green Lantern, X-Men. Is there one of those that you're looking more forward to than the others?
Well, I mean, for me, I want to see X-Men First Class. I want to see how they reboot X-Men again. And then, I guess, I was never a big Thor fan, but Green Lantern would be. That was the only superhero movie that got cast in the last couple of years that I was like, shit, I should have been Green Lantern.
That would have been good. Was there?
Well, no, just because Green Lantern was huge. When I was a kid, that was one of my books. Loved Green Lantern. Before I'm okay with, but Green Lantern's a big one.
You see, I'm never a Green Lantern fan. I'm looking forward to it, but kind of like Iron Man. I wasn't an Iron Man fan, and then the movie came out, I was like, wow, it's done great. I think that Green Lantern can be one of those things. I was never really a fan, but what I've seen, I liked. I'm looking forward to that, too.
That is the difficulty with all the comic book movies, is that the coolest comic books don't necessarily make the coolest movies, right? It's a totally different genre. So I was with you. My buddy George was the big Iron Man fan. He was crazy Iron Man guy. I was never really that into it, but the movie caught me completely by surprise. But it just goes to show, you put a great actor and a great director, and you can make a great movie. Because some of the comic book movies suck.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking to Joshua Jackson, Peter Bishop from Fringe. Remember to watch it Friday nights, 9 o'clock on Fox, because that's what we do. And Joshua, I want to take a couple calls, but I have one more question for you. When you first signed on for this, obviously you said you're a geek. This is your kind of storytelling. How much of it was mapped out to where you are now? Did you know about the alternate universe? Or was some of this stuff happening on the fly?
I would say that the big things were mapped out, not by me. I knew a little bit of what was going on when we first sat down to talk about doing the TV show and coming back and working on a TV show. They gave me a very, very broad strokes of what the sort of overall story was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I would say our writers sort of, JJ is like Captain Secrecy, so he keeps everything close to the vest. So I think they had a better idea, but like so much of television, first off, the show that you think you're making when you make the pilot, it changes over the course of the first year because you're sort of figuring out how to make it. Mm-hmm. And second, as the story grows, and I think this is a good thing, not a bad thing, it changes, right? Mm-hmm. Some things work, some things don't work. I think originally in the first season, it was supposed to be more of like an Alias style show. Right. The girl and then a bunch of other people around her. But John, it's like, well, we got this guy. You got to use this guy. And all of a sudden, the story changes a little bit.
Yeah, well, JJ, I saw him in a panel, Comic-Con panel, talking about this, and, like Lost would get criticism, these guys don't know where they're going, and he said, listen, you have a guy who comes on the show like Michael Emerson, you're going to start writing for him. Right. You're going to change it around, and you want to have that. It doesn't have to be mapped out. It's going to change a little bit. That's a good thing.
Well, it would be, first off, nobody's that smart, right? Nobody's that smart to say, I know in 5 years, people are going to think this is cool.
Right.
But also, it would be a bit boring. It's sort of like paint by numbers. If it's like, if this is the story as it's supposed to be, you want to be surprised by good things, like a Michael Emerson, like a John Noble, who comes on, you're like, well, obviously this guy is where the show wants to be. So instead of writing it purely from her perspective, let's let her drive the sort of plot portion of the story, but let's put the emotional burden on his shoulders because because you want to watch him.
Yeah, absolutely. We are talking with Joshua Jackson, also Peter Bishop on Fringe, one of our favorite shows. And Adam from Long Island has a question for you, Josh. Can we call you Josh?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. It's not insulting.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Josh? I just want to tell you, Fringe is absolutely one of my favorite shows I've ever seen before. But I had two questions, then I'll hang up and let you talk. The first was, did you get a chance to meet Eric the Midget when he was on there? And if so, what was he like? And the second question, I just wanted to ask the rest of the guys at Geek Time, would you rather bang Olivia or Olivia?
All right.
Thanks for taking my call.
All right, thank you, Adam. Did you get a chance to talk to Eric at all, Josh?
Yeah, well, he came up, I guess it was the second episode of this year, and he was only up for one night. So
Hello, Joshua.
Yeah, he's actually pretty quiet. I expected him to be more ornery based on the radio,
Yeah.
but he's sort of a quiet guy, just sort of hangs out by himself.
You damn geek.
There he is. Well, listen, I have that up on mygeektime.com on a constant loop, his head exploding on the show, which was, somebody on the web did it, looped it for me, and it's you just running up and then his head exploding on a constant loop.
Can I tell you, not that actors are ever supposed to criticize their own work, but so here we are, we're doing that scene, right?
Right.
We're nobody knows what the effect is going to look like, and they weren't quite sure whether they were going to get away with the head exploding.
Yeah.
So I accidentally look like the coolest guy in the world because his head explodes, and I basically look down at my hand, sort of shrug, and move on. I barely even notice. I'm like, yeah, whatever, head exploded.
Well,
Been there, done that.
in your world, it is no big deal, and I got I think it was the first episode, either the first episode I watched, and it was the episode where they were on an airplane and somebody's head just melted and just
Melted, yeah.
There's a first episode. I'm like, you had me at hello. I mean, you have some really crazy. You get away with a lot on that show, which is another great. But you're not gratuitous about it. It's not just you earn the things that you do, which is another important storytelling point.
But all of the freaky stuff hopefully comes out of the story rather than just being freaky. Some nastiness for the sake of nastiness.
Yeah, but sometimes it's really nasty.
Yeah.
It's
but if you go in there, so that's first where the people melt on the plane.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite moments in Fringe.
Right.
So we got all these people. They're mostly extras, and when they show up, they have no idea what it is they're getting into, right?
That's great.
But we stick them on the plane, and they're like, okay, so here's what's going to happen. There's a couple people set on the plane, and their faces are going to melt off. And this one woman, if you go into slow-mo, she starts doing the full panic mode, and the guy whose face is melted leans over, and as she's screaming, his face melts into her mouth. And it's still the look on her face is one of the greatest moments of Fringe.
So there was absolutely no acting in that
No
episode.
acting required at all. That was
listen,
totally true.
And here that's a perfect sale for the DVD because I do highly recommend this show from the beginning. I mean, there's you can jump into it now, but there's things and just little idiosyncrasies and things that are just going to pay off if you've watched it from the beginning. You just start.
Also, if you want to jump in, I got to be honest, you can't jump into it now. You got to start at least at the beginning of the third season. Because all that alternate universe shit, you'll be so confused. Who is this, 30-year-old woman talking like an 80-year-old man? I don't get it.
You know what? I just want people to watch it, so I was kind of lying. You do need to start.
This is why they don't ask me to promote the show.
Josh, as a fellow geek, what's it like working and being on a show with Leonard Nimoy?
Oh.
Well, it's surreal. Because you have, you're in the midst of doing the TV show, and they're sort of like, well, Bell's going to come around for, we'll figure it out, and then all of a sudden, we're at Comic-Con last year, and Leonard Nimoy suddenly shows up at dinner, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, this guy's going to be our William Bell, and then he's going to announce his retirement from acting on our show.
What? Yeah, right.
We're the last time that he's ever going to put himself on camera.
And even when he was on the musical episode, which what did you think of that? I'm in the minority. Not a lot of people loved it. I thought it was really great. I mean, and I'm never a fan of those.
I'll be honest. I'm not a fan.
Ha! Yes.
You're wrong. I'm sorry, Josh. You're wrong. It was a great episode.
Let him explain himself. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, I'm a fan of it because I like that we push the boundaries of storytelling on our show.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. But the musical episode is for season 8.
Thank you.
Well, it's not like I would want to see it again, but what your marching orders were, I thought you could not have done a better job with it.
No, I think, to our credit, I think we pulled it off, and I think we did a good episode by itself. Just for me as a fan, in the middle of the narrative of the show, right at the, especially, that's like episode 18 and 19 of last year, right when the story's taken off, we go into glee mode for a week.
Right,
like,
yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, right.
It's not, it's not our show. And I get we made it work because Walter was stoned and he was just tripping out, which is very Fringe, but still, it's like, That for me, I could have done without them. I like the fact that we're pushing the envelopes, and we actually have another episode this year in the same spot in the story that is more about the actual story, but it goes, I can't tell you what it does, but it does something very cool, and that one I'm all for. That one I think is...
You're not singing and dancing, are you?
We are not singing and dancing.
All right.
3D? 3D maybe?
Just making sure.
Well, if we hit, there we go. Another reason to save the show. We're going to do a 3D episode next year if we're still on the air.
Oh, nice. That's
the next thing for us to do.
And another, not to kiss too much ass here, but another thing I loved about Fringe.
Especially if it's my ass, go right ahead.
All right, I'm puckering up. When you guys do the episodes this season where you go back with your kids and they do the credits in the 70s thing, I love that. That is just such an inside great thing, and it shows sort of how dedicated to geekdom you are.
And how, frankly, smart the guys that I work for are. They just last year when they went back the first time and they went back into the 80s, all of a sudden you get like an 80s style theme song.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And always watch the opening credits on the show because the words change.
Yeah. Also for that it wasn't like Paranormal Activity, it was like computers in your car. Like
precisely. Yeah, exactly.
Things that cell phones walking around.
And then also, you guys know the red-blue shift, right? When you go into the alternate universe, we always pop through a red shift.
Right.
The Fringe, everything goes red for a second so that that you're over there. And I love stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that I geek out on when I'm watching a show, right? Where you're watching the story, but there's also all this other stuff going on that if you pay attention, is there for you to enjoy.
Right. The payoff is there. And like you were saying, I don't think enough networks and shows give the audience enough credit for how smart they are and can be. With Lost, we're big Lost fans. We love picking up that subtle stuff that's happening in the background. And with Fringe, it's so layered, it's so complex, yet you still, if you miss all that, you still enjoy the show. But when you catch that little thing here or there, you just, you get off on it.
And that's why it's important people support and watch this show, because for the networks, they want shows that are standalone episodes that they can package and sell and stick out there. And I get that, but it's like you also get to give for some quality entertainment, and this is quality entertainment.
Yeah, we don't want to give up the place. Network TV, which is still the big driver of television, it's what most people watch. We don't want to lose that as a place where good, I don't even like calling them genre shows, but that's what they're called in the TV world. But, where good television is made with big, large, serialized stories. If all of that stuff is going to HBO and AMC, I think that's not good. Nobody would make The Walking Dead on network television right now, and that's too bad, because that show's awesome.
That show is awesome, and it was at NBC for a little while, I think, and, thank God it didn't end up there, and finally, because it would have been a watered-down version, and but I think the networks are starting to get it with success of shows like that. Thank God.
I think, in my personal opinion, and I don't know, I hope this happens fast enough for Fringe to be saved, but TV is changing a lot. Yeah. And the way that people watch TV is changing a lot. And the sit down on Friday and watch the show, that reality is going away. And pretty soon the network television is going to have to change as well. They're going to have to adapt to the times.
But I don't know. I love a show like yours where I do want to rush home and watch, or I like that appointment TV. I'm old school, so I like saying, okay, it's on, and I got to get there, and I got to watch it.
We need more people like you. And the other thing is, with all the with the layered storytelling that we try to do on Fringe, where there's the story and then there's sort of all these other fun things going on. In the era of the internet, you can, it used to be, I would watch X-Files and I'd hang out with my friends on Saturday and we'd talk about, what it was and how cool it was.
Right.
But in the world now, you can be watching the show, and as it's going on, if you look on the internet, as soon as the Observer pops up, everybody knows the Observer was just there. And that community that can be built around the show that used to just be sort of the dedicated geek, the core geeks that you had in your life, you can share that stuff and really enjoy it. That's, I think, what made Lost so incredible. Not only the storyline was great, but there was a whole community that built up around it that picked apart every piece of the show and really got into it.
Yeah, what's great now, too, is something like Twitter. Like last night I was sitting there, putting some comments out there as the show was going along. You try not to ruin it for West Coast people or something. Say, hey, tune out or something and try to avoid any spoilers. But it's fun. It's like, I put the raised eyebrow comment out there. It's fun. It makes it interactive. It's different.
Yeah, it gives you, beyond just enjoying the hour of the show, it gives you a sort of a sense of community where you can peel apart all the ideas. That's the fun of a smart show, right?
Yeah.
Is that there's a lot of stuff going on there and you want to talk to somebody
Exactly. You want to, that's why I loved Inception so much, because it brought up a conversation. What happened? Is this? Was it that? Hey, Josh, before we let you go, I got to ask you a question. In the beginning, you guys were shooting in New York area, right?
Yeah.
And now you're in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Is it ever warm there? Because you always seem to be freezing. It's like you even got the breath coming out of it. I feel bad for you sometimes. Like, this poor guy's freezing his ass off all the time.
You can watch, even my mother said to me the other week, she's like, you can tell it's right in the middle of the season in Vancouver because you don't have necks anymore. Everybody's shoulders are up by their ears.
Yeah.
You all look like you've been standing out in the rain for 15 hours. So, yeah, the first, 5-6 episodes of the year, it's warm, it's sunny, everybody's happy. And then by the middle of the season, all the white people on the show are Snow White. We haven't seen a sun in 6 months.
Yeah.
And everybody's, the show slows down a little bit. But it'll get warm soon.
All right, because like your mom, I feel bad for you. And Josh, so we're gonna get something together. We're gonna send it. Everybody's gonna watch Fridays. You got to watch it live. Don't DVR it. Watch it live. You can DVR it too. But
and Josh, give us the marching orders. Tell our fans right now, what exactly should they do? How do we save the show?
Just watch it on Friday nights. Unplug your DVR, PVR, whatever it is. It is not my friend. Turn it off.
Turn it off.
Watch it on Friday nights. 2, if the numbers stay where they were last night, around a 1-3, buy up every piece of red vine you can and send it to Kevin Riley.
Kevin Riley.
Kevin Riley's the guy. All right,
you're on notice.
Riley at Fox. He's the guy.
Kevin Riley at Fox. So what we're going to do, Josh? I'm going to get that. We're going to go check out on our Twitter at My Geek Time. I'll post that. We're going to. I'll try to even mention on the Howard Stern show. We'll do all we can. Every show we'll mention because we got to save the show. This is,
right.
and if we do, can we come to the set?
Absolutely. How about this? If you get the thing started, why don't I call back and check in with you guys in a couple weeks, and we'll see how we're doing.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome, man.
That's great. Right. Thank you very much. This is Josh Jackson,
Thanks,
Peter
Josh,
Bishop on
great.
Fringe. We're going to save this show. Make sure you watch it live Fridays at 9:00, and it's a great show. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, we're not telling you to watch some garbage. If you're listening to this show, watch it.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Greg Weisman from Young Justice. We're going to talk TV, movies. We're going to talk Twitter. We're going to talk about.
Oh my God, we've got more.
Lots of geeky stuff to get to on this episode, S2E8 of Geek Time.